Hello, and welcome to another devlog for Lucen. The outpouring of support for Lucen has been immense this past few weeks. Thank you everyone who is a part of this amazing community. You may have noticed that the devlog is a few days late. This is because the schedule of Lucen took priority, and I had a lot to do. Going forward, I will be transitioning to uploading devlogs approximately monthly, but not adhering to a strict schedule for them. This will help me be more flexible and focus on making Lucen, and ultimately improve the quality of the devlogs. I'd like to thank all my amazing Patreon supporters. You're helping me get one step closer to continuing to work on Lucen full time, and I really appreciate it. I've been working on quite a few things since the last devlog, including a few that are a secret for now. One thing I worked on a lot was the beginning of the implementation of the bow gameplay. It involved creating a lot of assets, a placeholder bow mesh, a rig for the bow, and new animations for both the bow and Lucen. As well as that, there was quite a lot of logic to script for the bow. For the rig, I created a base bow mesh procedurally in Houdini, and used the curves that formed it to also place the bones and drive some IK. This ensures that everything lines up. I'm using blend constraints to a single controller to drive the inverse kinematics on both the wood section and the string, so that only one controller is needed to draw the bow. I then animated this in tandem with Lucen to get the timings right, and exported the animation separately. I then used separate state machines to synchronize the states of the bow and Lucen for the draw, holding, and releasing of the bow. I also created logic for auto-targeting with the bow. The way it currently works is that you use the left trigger on the controller to zoom in with your bow, and the right trigger to fire. The bow automatically locks onto the nearest enemy, but I will be changing this to free look with a soft lock-on in future to make it skill-based. The other major thing I worked on was this environment and cinematic camera shot. I'm testing some things out for how I envision a future trailer, and I learned a lot with this. I created the terrain in Houdini again, as well as the cliffs using similar procedural techniques to the stone models I've been making. I will be making some extra variations of these cliffs going forward, as well as iterating on the shading and texturing. I placed them on the edge of the terrain in the engine, and then painted foliage on them to blend them with it. I'm happy with how they came out, especially how all the top-facing parts are covered in greenery. For the low-hanging clouds, I used particle sprites scattered on a mesh. Andreas Glad has a really cool tutorial for this. I'll link it in the description. There is also exponential height fog that gives some fall off. I made the waterfall and river mesh in Houdini by drawing a curve on the terrain. I then swept along this curve and modified the end to create the waterfall part. I made sure the UVs would go from 0 to 1 along it, and created a flow map to drive the texture. In Unreal, I created a material that pans along the river and waterfall based on this flow map. I also used the dot product of the up vector and the vertex normals of the mesh to blend to a whitewater noise for the waterfall. I'm also using distance fields to create the white edge foam around objects. I used the same material from the clouds for the mist particles and created a basic particle system for the waterfall mist. In the future I'll expand on these VFX and improve them. I'm inspired by the waterfalls in Rime and will be using them as some of my reference. I also began learning the sequencer to set up a cinematic camera move. I'm using a camera crane and cinematic camera and keyframing values. By controlling the pitch, arm length and transforms of the rig, I'm able to create a nice camera move over the environment. I'd like to improve this by starting the move lower in the future, along with some other tweaks. But overall I'm happy with it, and I'm blown away by how easy the sequencer is to use. Once the sequence is set up, it's just a couple of clicks to write it out as an AVI from Unreal. Thanks for watching this devlog. Subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like to see more, and feel free to follow on Twitter, join the Discord, or support on Patreon. The links are in the description.